Good evening, and welcome to episode one of the 802 iRacing League's podcast. I am Rob Lowell. I am one of the admins of the league. Tonight I'm joined by Keith Fallin, who is our 802 Cup Series Season 5 champion. Keith, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, I'm Keith Fallin, driver of the 24 Captain Jack's Chevy Camaro.
So, I guess we'll start off with what is 802 iRacing Leagues. 802 iRacing Leagues was started just about a year ago now, maybe 10 months ago. Started out with a Dirt 358 modified league called the 802 Modified League. Just started out as a place for me and some of my buddies to race. And one of my good friends decided that, hey, it'd be cool to broadcast it. So he decided to broadcast using his sponsor to broadcast with his two businesses, G Stone Motors and Stone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. That's Todd Stone in Middlebury, Vermont. And we went out and we wanted a really good broadcaster that specialized in dirt modifieds, very knowledgeable, and we landed with Turn 3 Network and Roger Muff. And you can go out to Turn 3 Network and look up the 802 Modified Series. There's 12 races out there on their YouTube page, and you can see our product. It was some really great racing. We have quite a few actual Northeast Dirt Modified drivers and crew members in that league. We also have the Dirt Car Northeast director, Dean Reynolds, in it. We had drivers like Johnny Bruno, Josh Sun, Todd and Justin Stone. Demetrius Drelos did a couple races with us. Really had some awesome racing. Speedy Brissett from Plattsburgh, New York, a former sportsman racer in the modifieds, was our first season's champion in the 802 Mod Series. And that's really where the league started. And then June of this year, I ran in another league on Sunday nights in the Next Gen Cup Series cars, and really had a lot of fun with it. Season 5, they asked me to be an admin in it, and we kind of put the season together and got into race 1, and the league owner decided at that point he was going to pull out. We already had a broadcasting deal done with Freaky Fast Broadcasting. So the admins and some of the league members decided, hey, we'll do this on our own. And we decided to run it under the 802 iRacing League banner, call it the 802 Cup Series. And we ran the next 11 races under the 802 Cup Series banner. Good mix of tracks. And when the dust settled, Keith had won 5 or 6 of the features and walked away with the points championship by about 100 points. So tonight we just wanted to come on, talk to Keith a little bit about his season and what his thoughts were as a first season racer in the 802 Cup Series with us. So we'll jump right into that. So Keith, you kind of had a dream season, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It looks like 6 wins out of 12. So what was your expectations coming in, and what did you think was going to happen once you got into the season?
No, I mean, my expectations just come in and have fun and race with a bunch of guys. I didn't really have any expectations. Yeah, I'll be the first one to admit a lot of those races I did get pretty lucky on, either with the win or, top 2 finish. I think I had like a string of 8 or 9 races with like finishing in the top 2 also. But yeah, my expectation is just have fun racing. Racing's always been a big part of my life. From a little kid to now, I grew up around racing. My dad was a huge part of me getting into iRacing. But yeah, it was just really mainly to have fun. I didn't really think I was going to be able to do as good as I did. But I guess that's what practice does.
Yeah, so I would say you adapted really quick. We have I don't know, I'd call them mid-length races maybe. I don't think they're short length. They're not long length. They're not 75%. But tire tire conservation and tire wear does come into play, and um,
Yeah.
you were really good at that. That's where I
Yeah.
feel like you excelled.
Yeah. I talked to my dad a lot, asking him for advice because as far as people that I know that races, he's probably one of the best. I mean, he was a crew chief for a dirt track driver named Skip Pinnell. He was crew members on back when it was called the Bush series. He was actually a crew member for a Bush series driver. Um, so he knew a lot about racing, and one of the big things in the Gen Sixes I struggled with was tire saving. Um, and me and him had a lot of conversations about how I can save tires. And one thing he told me that kind of just stuck with me is just you know do what the car wants to do. Don't push it beyond what it wants to do. Just do exactly what it wants to do, and you'll save tires that way. So I took that to heart, and I put that in practice. I spent hours and hours and hours running, under lap runs, stuff like that, and just practice on my long run speed and learning what the car exactly wanted to do and how hard I could push it. And honestly, that's probably the best way I started saving tires.
Cool. So, without giving away all your secrets, um, tell me what you look at when you go into a track, um, like when you're practicing. I know what one of the first things I look at is I go out and make a run where I don't hold back in practice, and I go and I look at my tire tabs and my tire wear, um, and then I start playing. If my brake bias a little bit, I try to feel if I can feel the car driving off the right rear, if it's driving off the right front a lot. Is that similar for you, or?
Yeah, so what I always do, especially if it's a track that I haven't raced in the next gen cars, is I'll just go out there and I'll run, several hot laps. I want to try to find, that razor thin edge of the car being under control and being out of control. Because I think that's important to know where the edge is. Because you can't run fast laps if you don't push it to that edge. So I'll always just go out probably the first couple of days. I'm just running as hard as I can. Just lap after lap, trying to find and figure out how hard I can push it. And I try different lines on the track too, and seeing where I can push it hard and everything like that. Once I figured out that edge, then I'll start, running, 15, 20 lap runs, seeing what my tire wear and tire temps are, and basically just adjust, how hard I'm going into the turn, where I'm braking, brake points if I need to arc more in the turn, or if I need to take a little bit shallow of the entry into the turn. That's typically my thought process when I get ready for a track.
Yeah, so it sounds like um, yourself and me and the guys I race with, my teammates Johnny Barker and Gene Cato and Jeff Barefoot. We sounds like we have a very similar race week ritual. We get in, we practice, we go hard. Um, really lucky on my side, I have Johnny and Jeff that and Gene when he's available. He's work's gotten crazy with him the last month and a half, and he's been missing quite a bit of practice and race. But I feel like I'm lucky because we go out, the three of us, and Johnny's very by nature aggressive. He goes out there and he goes hard. Um, I'm a little more methodical. I kind of hang back and I try to figure the car out. But we have two or three different philosophies of how to race, and we very quickly can gather the data. Hey, can we go hard and not scrub the right front off it? Do we have to kind of go easy here and let the tires go with the temp and then go? Or hey, is this a track like Homestead where Homestead I found actually Johnny found Homestead in practice. I was out to lunch. I was junk. Um, at the end of a fuel run, he was half a second faster than me and was 8 seconds ahead of me. And I was beating myself up because everything I had done to previous races to save tires was not working.
Right.
And he jumped in my car with me and rode around, and he's like, you're way too easy. You need to drive the car hard and drive it in there hard, and you'll feel the car start to get a little bit loose. And when you do, go back with the gas and get it to drive off the right rear, and that will save your right front. And it turned out that I was really good at Homestead, but without my teammate, that never would have happened because I would not have figured that out. Um,
Oh, oh yeah. I mean, I had David Medina. He kind of showed up halfway through the season. Me and him raced a lot together in a few different leagues. So me and him knew each other really well, and we both trusted each other. But me and him would compare lap times, and we actually had I can't remember the name of the website right now off the top of my head, Sim Racing School or something like that, where we could see each other's lap data.
yep.
So we would share each other's data and kind of see where he was beating me at, and I was seeing where I was beating him at. And we kind of adjusted how we drove the tracks in there. He's an extremely fast driver. He had a couple of bad breaks, early on, but his speed showed up there towards the end of the season, and he helped me tremendously.
Yeah, I feel like the team aspect of the league really is key. At least for me, and I know for the guys I race with on my team. Um, not only does it help you as a driver, but it helps keep me engaged throughout the week. Makes me want to practice. Helps me want to, I have someone to talk to during the race. You're having that two-way communication of, hey, I'm struggling here. It's helping. And I really feel like one of the things our league needs to do to keep guys interested and help grow is we need to expand our teams. We're talking about going to, this will be news to some people. We're talking about going to 5 full-time drivers on each team and up to 2 part-time drivers. And the thought process behind that is, hey, let some more people join the established teams that have kind of learned how to drive these cars and are there every week, and we can help those guys grow and get better. And as they grow and get better, they'll race more towards the front. They'll want to stick around. Um, and the social aspect, I really feel, is what will keep people in this league.
Right.
So that's one thing that the admins have been talking about the last week. Um, we did our survey, and I want to thank everyone that the 16 respondents that turned their surveys in the last couple days. Got some really good data out of that. One thing that I was really surprised to see was, we have 12 tracks on the schedule, and 100% of the respondents really like the schedule. So does that mean it'll be the same exact schedule as season 6? Probably not. We may tweak it a little bit. Um, but you're going to see, I think, a very similar schedule. We asked, hey, was the race length right? Was it too long, too short? Had a couple had one or two that thought it was too short, one or two that thought it was a little bit too long, but the majority thought, hey, the race length was about right. So, um, all things we're going to look into. What's your thoughts on those things?
I mean, I thought the race links was there was nothing wrong with the race links. And the types of tracks, I liked it. Me personally, I like tracks where you're a little bit looser. So, like Homestead, I really enjoyed as loose as Las Vegas was before I screwed up, spun out, and hit the wall. I really enjoyed Las Vegas. I thought that was a really fun track. Um, but I like different varieties of tracks because different people. Some people might be good at short tracks. Some people might be good at the super speedways. You might have some people good at more of a Miami style track where you don't have a dog leg, and some people like Kansas where you can run a little bit higher. Same thing would seem like this go around with the way the setup was with Las Vegas, where you can run more in the middle of the track and still put down some really fast times. So I thought it was a good variety of tracks, and the like I said, the length wasn't no issue for me. I like a little bit longer of a race where but not so long where you're sitting there and your back starts hurting and stuff like that. Cause I'm by no means in shape, so I can't sit in the chair for 3-4 hours. My back was starting hurting and I had to get up and whatnot. But overall, I thought track selection and track length was great.
Yeah, the race length really this past weekend, Saturday morning, I get up and I usually do it the 6 a.m. Um, NIS race, official series race, and I logged on and looked, and it was 500 laps at Bristol, and I said, yeah, I'm probably not going to sit here and do 500 laps at Bristol. So I actually skipped this week's NIS race. I did
Yeah,
attempt the Coke 600 back in May. That was 400 laps. That was a full length race. Um, and I made 323 laps and got wrecked out of the lead by a lap car. But that was even getting wrecked out at 70 to go. I think there was still we were at the 3 hour and 20 minute mark at that point. You figure you had probably another 30 minutes there. So
Yeah, I did the Coke 600 NIS race, and yeah, I actually won the race. I did like 279 laps during that race. But after the race, I mean, my arms were shot, my back was shot. I was barely able to get out of the chair, and it took us 4 hours and I think 15 minutes to complete that race. And yeah, that was brutal. I don't plan on doing that again.
yeah, I so kind of talking about your arms brings up the next question I want to get into. Do you want to share what you have for equipment as far as your wheel, pedals, that sort of thing? I know a lot
Yeah,
of guys in the league have been asking questions about wheels and pedals, what people use, and after you share, I'll share what I have.
yeah. So when I first started iRacing, it was really just kind of a spur of the moment type thing. I bought a Logitech G29 just to see if I would actually like it and if I would get into it. And I ended up liking it. So I pretty much upgraded to a Fanatec fanboy. I got the CSL DD for my wheelbase and the V3 pedals. And then I also have the Fanatec shifter. Um, so far, I have nothing but good things to say about the direct drive. I wish there was a little bit more feedback in it, but for what you pay for it is extremely good. And I got the RW, I think is what it's called, wheel. It ain't the NASCAR wheel because I did a little bit of research, and because I got the 8 Newton meter version of the DD. Um, a lot of people are saying if you use a heavier wheel, you lose some of that feel. So the CRW wheels, probably one of the lighter, full circle wheels, not um, the type of wheels.
Yeah,
But
the GT style.
yeah, the GT style. This is the full circle one, so but it's lighter, so you can actually feel a lot in the steering wheel. So yeah, that's what I use, and I can't recommend it more. I mean, I love it.
Yeah, so very similar paths for us as far as equipment goes. So I started out just like you on a Logitech G29 wheel when I first got into it. Um, and I got into it in 2019, and I did it for probably 6 months, and then I struggled. I couldn't get going. I was flat out horrible. Um,
Yeah,
but I didn't do the homework necessary as far as setting up my controls, setting up my field of vision, and all that. Um, so COVID comes back. COVID comes around in 2020, um, and I get T-load from work, temporary layoff for lack of work for 4 weeks, and I'm home, and I decide, you know what, I'm going to build a gaming PC. Before that, I had a HP Omni. It ran iRacing at like 70 frames per second, and everything at low settings. It was not, it was not good at all. Um,
right.
it had a Ryzen 2600 with a built-in um, graphics into the CPU. It didn't have a GPU in it. It would do it, but it was a struggle. Um, now the PC had nothing to do with my lack of driving skill, but I built a really good gaming computer, and I was actually doing Call of Duty Warzone in October of 2020. I decided, actually it wasn't that. It was like maybe September. Hey, I really want to do iRacing again. I'm a racer by nature. I've been racing for 27 years. I work on dirt modifieds and super late models on asphalt down in the winter, and we go down to Florida race. So wanted to get back into iRacing. So I dug out the G29 wheel, put it together, and started racing. And it was a Joe Six Pack Racing League then, and it was built for Joe Six Pack racing for the for normal guys. And um, I still sucked, and I sucked bad. Um, and I was blaming the wheel. Now I now know there's people all over. Um, Timmy Hill is one of them. He won one of the COVID races against all the NASCAR guys on a G289 wheel
Yeah.
hooked to his
Right.
desk, on but so I went out and I got a Thrustmaster um, T300 in pedal set, and I I still struggled. So then I started doing my research, like, okay, why am I not getting any better? Well, I found out my field of view was all screwed up, and if your field of view is not right, iRacing is as much a visual cue as it is tactile and force feedback.
Yep.
If you're not getting the right visual cues because your field of vision's off, that affects what you think the car is doing. So I fixed that, got a little better. Um, I went out and researched what should my wheel settings be for what I have, um, and I looked all over the internet and found some guys that could help me there, and I got the wheel dialed in. And then that's honestly 10 to 15% of getting faster. The rest of it's just putting the time in, and started putting some time in and practicing. Um, and last year, like week 3 or 4 of our 358 league, my T300 burned out on me. Um, Actually, it burned out just for a Joe six pack racing league race on a Sunday afternoon, and I went on Amazon and nothing's available, and go on Fanatec and nothing's available. You're talking weeks, if not months, to get a wheel. So one of my friends hooked me up with a guy out in Central New York that had a Fanatec CSW 2.5. Um, he just switched over to a direct drive and was going to keep that wheel for a spare, but I picked it up for a few $100 along with a P1 wheel, and I couldn't believe the difference that made. It like yours, it's an 8 Newton meter wheel. That's the force feedback on it. It's belt drive, not direct drive. Um, but it really, all of a sudden, I could feel the right front tire.
Yeah.
It's amazing how you can feel the right front with it. I learned the settings for that. I picked up a set of Fantech V3 pedals. If there's anyone out there that's going, what should I upgrade first, my wheel base or wheel or my pedals? Upgrade your pedals.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's the braking. What I can do with the braking on these V3s and the pedals that are above that, the hydraulic pedals, it's just amazing. The feel of getting the car slowed down. You got depth to your pedal. It's not a hall switch. It's just a nice, smooth, progressive brake pedal. So
It allows you to be more consistent.
yeah, and on oval, um, the next gen stuff probably not as much. But if you're running like a super late model at a short track, or you're running any of the road course stuff, that's when the brake pedals really come into it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
the thing, the Logitech G29, I like that wheel. The biggest issue I had, one is gear driven, so it was kind of clunky feeling. But my biggest issue was the wheel would get hot, and I would actually lose some force feedback, halfway through the race because it started getting hot. Um, so that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to switch. And the DD I have now, it'll get warm, but you still have the exact same feedback from when you start the race.
yeah, absolutely on the Logitech, and I also had that dead spot right in dead center.
Yeah.
Where it feels like you're moving it and it's not moving. All of a sudden, it does go. So
Yep.
I thought real quick here, Keith, we'll just go over let's do the top 15 and points for the 802 Cup Series Season 5. Um, as you said, Keith Fallin, you are the 802 Cup Series Season 5 champion. You scored 483 points over the season. And for you guys out there that don't know our league and are familiar with it, we do utilize a one race drop rule. So that way, hey, if you have a bad race or you need to miss a race, you drop that race and it doesn't affect your score. So we take your best 11 finishes and count towards championship. That was new this year. We used to do absentee points up to twice a year, but we felt like maybe a drop race would be better because honestly, in the past, people would miss races and they'd still be in the points race. and we said, hey, that's really not fair. The guy that has a bad run, like you, let's say you didn't miss a race and you wanted to drop an 18th place finish, you could, and it would help you in the points lead. So we just thought that was fair to everyone. Um, I finished second, 80 points behind you at 403. My teammate Jeff Barefoot was third in points, 2 points behind me, and our other teammate Johnny Barker was fourth in points at 397. Interesting story. Myself, Jeff, and Johnny came into the final race second, third, and fourth in points, and it was at 1 point between me and Jeff, and 1 point between Jeff and Johnny. So literally 2 points separated the three of us um, for second place in points. And coming to the white flag, Jeff was second, I was third. We were in a tie for second place in points, and I was luckily able to sneak by him last corner on the outside. Um, and I'll tell you, that was a bittersweet moment um, because I was pulling for Jeff to somehow pull off second place in points. Um, but I got too much respect for the guy to just not pass him. I know he wouldn't want to get it that way. Um, Jeff to me is everything that's right about our league. Um, he puts a lot of time and effort into it. Great guy. He's retired. Um, just out there to have fun, and the improvement he's had over the last 2 seasons, um, amazing. And he's running up front now and contending for a win. And I fully expect him to get a win in season 6.
Funny story thing that you mentioned that. So during the Las Vegas race, I actually mentioned it to Kevin and David. I was telling them, I was like, dang, Jeff really improved from just the start of this season to the end of it. I was like, dang, he's actually improved a lot. He's fast because I was racing him there, after I spun, but I was trying to get by him and I couldn't get by him for a while. I was like, dang, he's actually improved a lot. It was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And um, our other teammate Gene Cato, he's swapping jobs and taking care of the family and stuff. So he did not get to race as much the last half of the season as he wanted to. But um, Gene has a lot to do with the performance of our team. Very knowledgeable about um, different lines of different tracks. And um, Gene, I'm going to say 5, 6 races ago, spent some time one night practicing with Jeff and just gave him some one-on-one tutelage, and it really paid off. So I want to give a shout out to my buddy Gene Cato. Hopefully, if you're not listening now, you'll hear it sometime, Gene. And you know, we're grateful for all the help you've given us the last 2 seasons, and look forward to racing with you in season 6. Um, David Lamaga, one of our other admins, finished 6 in points. He was at 378. Dave missed a couple races. Um, did the family thing. Took a couple weeks off. Went to the West Coast. Had a vacation. So good to see Dave as a couple times series champion. And I fully expect him to come bouncing back in season 6 and be contending up front for a championship. Art Greco was new this year. He finished 7th in points at 349. Gene Cato was 8th in points at 293. Mike Killenbeck was 9th at 268, tied with Zach Scott, who was also at 268 points. Wayne Dewey, another admin, was at 250 points. Tyler Dingler, who joined us probably halfway through the season, was at 235. Kevin Bullock was at 229 and 13th. And 14th was Dave Medina Sr. with 225 points. And then round out the top 15, Eli Raposa, another admin of the league, was at 223 points. So I know some of your teammates came in mid-season, but they found themselves up front battling hard a couple different times.
Oh yeah, I'm really proud of Kevin winning the Las Vegas race. I was probably more excited that he won that race versus all the races that I won, just because he's always been fast, but he's one of those people that go as hard as you can, and most of the time he would burn up his stuff and kind of fall back. And I kept telling him, I was like, man, be a little bit more patient on the tires. And it really paid off for him. I was so excited that he won that race.
Yeah, and let's talk about that race a little bit. There was a stretch from probably lap 40 to lap, I don't know, 60, 65, where there was 5 or 6 guys. You were up there, I was up there. Um, Alonzo King, Jeff Taylor, Kevin, um, Barefoot. Jeff Barefoot joined our group late in that session, but there was 5 or 6 cars within a second of each other battling for the win. Um, you and Alonzo were side by side for it seemed like 15 laps, and I was behind you guys. I mean, right on your bumpers, trying to go. Okay, am I following Keith here? Or am I following Alonzo? Oh, Alonzo's got half a car length. I'll move to the top. Oh, Keith's 3/4 way by him. I better go back to the bottom. And that I'll say is probably some of the funnest racing I've had in this league over the 5 seasons we've run. And I was really disappointed because our broadcaster missed most of those battles. They were
Yeah,
falling
I
like
mean,
seventh, eighth place, but it was intense.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had an absolute blast. I mean, I really wish I wouldn't have had a boneheaded move and spun out and smacked the wall like I did. But it's Las Vegas. Whatever update they did to the setup of that car, I think was the right setup. I mean, the car was very hard to drive, but these next gens are supposed to be hard to drive. But it made it so everybody, the draft, while you can get off the draft going down straightaways, everybody just stay right there. And it was very hard to pass. You really had to be careful. And if a car can like just pinch you down coming out of 2 or 4, that will cause you to, and that happened to me a couple of times where I had to let off the gas because I would have hit the car and that made me lose a few positions. But I didn't drop all the way back. I was still able to stay with the pack and keep fighting. But yeah, that was a blast during that race. It was definitely probably the funnest race of the season.
Yeah, and we were going there, and we had green flag pit stops, and I ducked in, Alonso ducked in. You'd gone in a couple laps before us. You kind of pulled the trigger there, and I'm going to tell you that's not usually your strategy. I think that's the first time I've seen you been the first car to pit road. Usually, you're one of the last ones to go in because you want those newest tires at the end of the race. Um, but I also think you might have maybe burnt your right front a little bit in that run, and you felt like, hey, I need to go now because I'm starting to. I know you were back to what, third, fourth at that point. Um, and I had missed you going to pit road, so like I looked up and you were gone, and I looked at my race labs overlay and it showed that you had pitted, and I said, oh, he's gonna be a second half faster. I gotta go this next lap. So
Yeah, I didn't really burn my right front off. It's just so hard to. It was so hard to pass on that at that track. It took several laps for you to get past the car to get a good run. So I figured, I'll do it the cheap way and pit first, and then get a second and a half up on everybody because I felt like if I could get out in clean air, that it would be very hard to catch me. I think I proved that at one point when I started out in the front, and I think I jumped to a 2 second lead, and I wasn't even pushing my car that hard. I felt like I still had a lot of tire left, and then we had a caution. But I was just trying to get that clean air. And, clean air was king at that track, and I want to give a huge shout out to David saying what's up in the chat. But yeah, I was just trying to leapfrog everybody. That was my main objective. And yeah, I normally like to pit a little bit later, but I didn't feel like the if you pushed it hard, the fall off would have came with it. I think the fall off was pretty neutral as far as how hard you were pushing or how hard you wasn't pushing it. So yeah, I just wanted to leapfrog everybody basically.
yeah, so go back to Atlanta. That's what I did. In round 2 of this season, I got to pit road probably 8 to 10 laps before. Well, myself and a couple of my teammates went to pit road 8 or 10 laps before everyone else. And when it all said and done, I had like an 8 second lead at that point. Um, and you got knocked down like 4 seconds over the course of the run. But then I came in early again. Um, I had split. We had a comp caution like lap 40 or 30 maybe, and I split the rest of the run right in half. My pit stop right at the middle half of it, and I came out with like a 24-second lead when, by the time you pitted and got your tires. Um, when I saw I had 24 seconds on you, I knew you were gonna be the car to beat. I just had to stay ahead of you, and I gave up a lot of time on purpose. I just kind of went 3/4 throttle and didn't abuse my stuff, and I knew you had to go hard, um, because you had to make up the time. So you were knocking it down like a second and a half at a time, and you
Yeah.
got down like 10 seconds, and I picked up a little bit. And then you got down like 7 seconds, and you caught, I think it was Zach Scott maybe. Um, and our tires evened out there at the end, and it played out. And when I looked up and you weren't in my rearview mirror, I said, "Oh, I this is not good." Um, I thought for sure because I didn't. I looked at it. I think it said you pitted on like lap 57, 58 maybe. And when
Yeah.
I noticed it was like lap 62, I'm like, for a second, 4 laps, second and a half, he's up 6 seconds on us. Um, and then so I came right then, and a lot of the other guys came at the same time once I yelled I was coming in. Um, but then the caution came out. You got a little loose, spun out, and Kevin caught, I think, everyone except maybe 3 or 4 cars a lap down.
Yeah.
Um, and so a bunch of us took the wave around, but then we're starting single file. Um, and by the time, fought through traffic, by the time I got up to like third or fourth, he was out 6, 7 seconds on me. And just brilliant strategy on his part. He went hard right off the bat and got a lead, and then I was going hard too, but I had to go through traffic, and as you know, that just you abuse your stuff then, and
Oh
really
yeah.
good feel good story to see Kevin win that race. Um, it's a guy that like my teammates that are there every week, and they put the time in, and it was good to see Kevin in victory lane, and I expect next season we're going to see a lot more guys other than the 3 or 4 that won this year.
Oh yeah. I mean, it takes practice. Typically if I hadn't raced the track in the next gen when I first start practicing, I'm slow. I'm very, very, very slow. And I just keep pushing that fine edge of, being in control and out of control, pushing it further and further and further, to where I finally get the speed that I normally have. Um, I know some people don't have time to practice, especially as much as I do. But, even, taking 20, 30 minutes out of the day, run some laps, just see how the car handles. I go through scenarios. I'll do restarts. I'll be on the track by myself practicing. I'll practice restarts on, fresh tires. I'll do run a half a fuel run, then do restarts on that. I'll run a full fuel run just in case, everybody might be out of tires and there's a late caution. And seeing what the restarts will be like. Um, I practice getting into pit road with fresh tires. I practice on worn tires. I'll actually overdrive my car and wear the tires out more than what I normally would, and practice getting on pit road that way. I just try to think of every scenario that could possibly happen and practice, you know, getting on and off pit road because that's an important part. Especially if you have a lot of green flag runs and getting on the pit road. And then, like with Las Vegas, I didn't do a lot of practice. I maybe had 10 laps of practice. Um, and I think that's what bit me in the butt. I pushed the car a little bit too hard on cold tires, and that's the reason why I lost it. But there's a prime example. If you do practice those things, then when stuff pops up, you know how to react to it. When I started feeling the rear end come out, I burped the throttle and got back in, and I thought I was good. Next thing I know, I'm spinning and smacking the wall. So if I would have done that practice and practice on those cold tires, I would have known what the car was going to do a little bit better. Um, so I mean, if anybody out there is listening, if you want to improve, just practice. Practice all that types of stuff. It will only make you better.
Absolutely. What I'd add to that is, we we try, and I think we pretty much did all season. Maybe one week we didn't. We try to have the race conditions and settings up the Monday prior to our race. So, um, 6 days ahead of time. And, what we do is we look at what the weather forecast is for the day we're going to race at the track we're going to. So we looked at Las Vegas, and unfortunately, it was supposed to be 105 degrees that day, but iRacing only lets you go up to 90, so we maxed out the temperature. But we'll set the wind, the temperature, the humidity as close to what that race day conditions are going to be as the weather forecast says it's going to be. We use weather.com, and we post what the fuel load's going to be. This season it was mostly 60%, and what I'd say is, hey, spend the 50 cents for the hour. Set up a private practice, or we'll have we'll have some league practices, and make sure you run the fuel load that we're going to be running in the league, because the difference between 60% and 100% fuel load does affect how the card handles, how
Oh
it
yeah.
drives, start of the run, late in the run, on a restart. All that comes into play. So, for people listening that maybe you don't usually practice a lot, or you just practice the test drive version of the track, and you run the iRacing setup like we do, the fixed setup, just think about that full fuel load totally changes the car. And hey, spend the 50 cents, or go in the league chat and say, hey, is anyone going to have a practice this week? I know our team practices usually 2 or 3 times a week under race conditions, and we'd have no problem saying, hey, yeah, we're practicing at this time. Here's the password. Drop in and practice with us.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that's I was on second shift at the time, so I was always practicing when most people were asleep. But I had a few people come in during when I was like, "Hey, I'm throwing up an hour practice at midnight." I would have a few people come in and practice with us.
yeah. I'd like this year to maybe on Wednesday nights next season, season six, especially now it's winter time and people's lives have calmed down a little bit. Maybe you're stuck in the house more. I think Wednesday nights we'll probably have a league practice. I'll put up for 2 or 3 hours. Just let it go, and um, want to build some of that camaraderie to help grow the league and keep people coming. Um, so between now and next week, if you guys can think of any suggestions, go ahead and shoot me a private message. Post in the chat here on YouTube. We're gonna try to have each week have a episode of the podcast. Um, we're gonna have different drivers on from both the dirt league and the asphalt league. Um, Next week, episode 2 is going to focus on the 802 modified series, but that's not saying that if we have an asphalt driver that wants to come on, we'll fit you in. We'll have a chat. Um, if you want to come on, anyone wants to come on, promote their sponsors, um, promote their race team, and try to recruit some new members to their race team in the league, I'm all for that. Um, especially since we're going to be opening it up the size of the teams to try to get people into established teams that can help them grow and help grow the league. We are still looking for a broadcaster for season 6. I'll be open up about that. We're not going back to Freaky Fast. That was a mutual decision to part ways there. Um, we do have a couple irons in the fire there. One's a broadcaster we worked with before on the truck series. Him and I talked today a little bit. And the other one's a new broadcaster we haven't worked with, but we've seen their product and we really like it. So I'm hoping in the next week we can nail down the broadcaster. We can announce that next week. What I will tell you is the mod series will be on Turn 3 Network with Roger Muth. It will be the same broadcast group as last year for that. We really loved it. Great product, and we hope to have a schedule out the 2nd or 3rd week of October. A lot of the guys that race in that league are going to Super Dirt Week out to Oswego. I'll be going out there, obviously, racing with our team. And when we get back, we should have a schedule nailed down. Look in the middle of November start time. We'll take some time off around the holidays from the league. We'll take some time off for the Chili Bowl. There's a bunch of the guys in the league that race. Either going out to Chili Bowl to race themselves or to crew or just to watch. So we will be having a couple weeks off around the Chili Bowl. We're also taking the usual couple weeks off come February speed weeks. The big blocks go down to Volusia for speed weeks to race on the dirt, and um, I'm usually down at New Smyrna working on our super late model that week. So we're shooting for 18 races in that season, but it'll start in November and probably end up early April. You got anything else you want to bring to the table tonight, Keith?
No, I mean, just again, give a huge shout out to my sponsor, Captain Jack Smokehouse Barbecue. If you're ever down in Fernandina or even Yealy, they just opened up a new location in Yealy, Florida. So if you're ever down in that area, just make sure you stop by and try some of that barbecue. And if the captain's there, ask for the captain, and I'm sure he'll definitely like to come talk to you if you want to talk about racing. He loves to talk about racing or sports, football, UGA, everything like that. I'm just stop on by. They got some really really good food.
Now, do you have any racing you go watch over the winter, or what type of racing do you enjoy watching on TV and stuff?
I mainly watch, the NASCAR Xfinity and then the Cup Series, and then if I can remember, I'll watch the Truck Series. Normally, I watch that on a replay though, but it's mainly just NASCAR. I grew up when I was going to the dirt tracks with my dad. I never sat in the stands at a dirt track race. I've always been in the pits. So to me, it's not the same going to a dirt track race without being there with my dad and being in the pits. I was 10, 11, 12 years old. He'd set me on top of the holler and give me a headset, and I could listen to him talk and everything like that. He did make a mistake one time and give me a headset that I can actually talk on, and it was a 100 lap feature race in the middle of it. I got hungry and I keyed on the radio and asked my dad for a hot dog.
Oh, that's
Uh,
priceless. Did
yeah,
you ever do
skipped a
any
nail.
ever do
Do
any
what?
driving yourself?
No, my dad, when I was a kid, did wanted me to get a go kart because that's what he started off with. But my mom would not let him because my dad been in some pretty gnarly wrecks on the go karts, but they were the older style go karts where the motor sat behind the driver, not onto the side. So those older styles, were skinny and long, and they flipped real easy. And he had a couple of really bad wrecks, so she would never let me race because she's seen my dad get into those wrecks.
So you never did like a crew race or a mechanics race, anything like that. You just
Nope. Mom would never let me.
so
Unfortunately, I really wanted to, but
uh,
yeah,
full disclosure, I started working for G Stones when I was 19 on their race team. It was my full time job for 7 years. It was like the perfect job right out of high school, right? You go and you work on race cars full time. You get to travel all over the Northeast racing. We raced
right.
on Friday nights up in Granby, Quebec. Autodrome Granby, it's called. It's a big half mile, probably closer to 5/8. It was high bank back then. And we were in big block modified, so you're talking back in the mid 90s, and big block modified weighed 850 horsepower, and the car weighed 2,500 pounds. So
Yeah.
it was quite the beast. And they had a mechanics race one night, and Todd was either kind enough or foolish enough. I'm not sure. Probably if you ask him now, he'd tell you he was foolish enough, but he let me go out in the mechanics race with it, and we drew for starting position, and I somehow drew the outside pole, and I wasn't smart to realize that wasn't a good idea. And they throw the green, and I stepped on it. It feels like someone slaps you in the chest, or punches you in the chest, I should say. Sit you back in the seat, and I realized real quick that I was out of my league, and I worked my way down to the infield and down by the infield. It's Jersey barrier, concrete barriers all the way around the inside of the track, and I'm trying to stay out of the way. And there were some guys in that mechanics race that had formerly raced those same cars, so they were getting it done, and they go by me pretty fast, and I kept getting closer and closer, and next thing you know, I run it down into the barrier. So skinned up the chrome on the car, on the rub rail, and the side of the car a little bit, but that was the extent of my driving, and I realized real quick that hey, I better stick to working on them and not driving them.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to get into racing. I've always, it's been such a huge part of my life. My dad, when he raced go karts, he was freaking good. Um, you know, growing up, I lived in a single wide trailer in Scooterville, Georgia, and my mom and dad's bedroom, they had this huge garden tub, but they couldn't take any baths in it because it was literally slammed full of my dad's go kart trophies. Um, but a funny story, when they were doing the Bush series, they were in the Nashville Fairgrounds back when they raced there, and they ran a race and they ended up finishing. I think he said second, but second or third. I can't remember which one, but he was the whole team was like hooping and hollering like they won the race, and you had all these reporters like run up to him congratulating them because they thought they actually won the race, and they're like, "No, we just finished second." They're like, "Oh," but he was just they were so happy about finishing, second or like I said, second or third in that race because it's a small team. There wasn't no big money behind it or anything like that. It was basically just a bunch of country boys from South Georgia decided to put a race team together for the Bush Series. So when they finished second, they were pretty ecstatic by it.
That's very cool. Yeah, it should be too.
Oh yeah,
Um, we go down south every winter, and it's when you get below the Mason Dixon line, it's another whole level to the racing down there. It's a different world than it is up here up north here. So,
oh yeah.
well, go ahead, Keith.
I, I with my I mainly watched Skip Annell mainly drove late models, but he also drove legends. We had like this little eighth mile asphalt oval in Albany, Georgia, and I've been to that track several times. If I was going to race, I think the legends were actually the thing that I wanted to race the most because I thought it was so fun watching those little cars go around the track. But Skip was leading the race one day, and there was a caution, and the driver behind him didn't slow down and just tore the whole right side of the car off. And when they were bringing it into the pits, I remember seeing my dad grab the fender that they had sitting on the tow truck, and he seen the driver that hit him walking by, and he grabbed the fender and just threw it at the dude and told him he can have the rest of the car. Yeah, it's just stuff like that. That's the thing I love about dirt track racing is just you get the tempers and everything like that, but it's just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, we do both, but I'll say my heart is definitely at the dirt tracks. Um,
Oh yeah.
well, Keith, we're like 58 minutes into this broadcast. We've taken up about an hour, so I think we'll wrap it up for this week, and we'll have you on again. Um, next week we will be looking at the 802 modified series. Hope to have a couple of drivers from that series on to talk about what we did last season and where we're going this season with it. But for now, Keith, I will thank you. I want to congratulate you one more time on your championship season with us, and
Appreciate it.
thank you and your team for supporting us. And look forward to next season with you.
All right, man. I appreciate it too, and thank you for putting on the league. It was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, we enjoy doing it, and we really enjoy the competition and everyone that races with us. So for tonight, we're gonna wrap it up, but we will be back on next Monday night at 7 p.m. on YouTube. You got the kinks worked out of the chat, so hopefully get some more people in chat asking questions, and we'll announce here later this week who our guests are going to be next week. So for now, have a great week, and we will talk to everyone next Monday night. Have a good night, Keith.
All right, you too, man.